In front of me, we have 7 pieces of paper. On each of these pieces of paper is a tip that's going to help you overcome that extreme hunger, combat that hunger, which is going to help you adhere to your calories or your nutritional plan whilst on your fat loss expedition. Now, I know I've done a short form video on this exact topic, but that's short form. I want to use this opportunity, this video, to actually explain every single one of these 7 points to you in detail and explain as to why they are so important and why they can be massive game changers. Not can be, why they will be massive game changers when it comes to your hunger levels, your fullness, and your adherence to the plan, which ultimately is going to lead to your progress. Let's use this video to break all of this down to help you progress on your health and fat loss expedition. If at any point during these videos you feel like you're learning something, please feel free to hit the like button, maybe even share it with a friend, and maybe even just subscribe to the channel. I mean, you don't have to do that. I'm not your mom. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Feel free to do whatever you want to do. Let's get into the 7 game-changing pieces of advice, tips that I'm going to give you to help you combat your hunger on your health and fat loss expedition. Number 1. Stop skipping breakfast. Now, the reason I add that as point number 1 is a lot of the times people really believe that they need to skip breakfast for fat loss to take place. It's not the case. Essentially, what happens when you're skipping breakfast is you're skipping a meal, you're cutting out the calories of that meal. It gives you a greater chance of being within a calorie deficit for that day. And we all know by now that a calorie deficit is where fat loss takes place. What can happen when you skip breakfast? You think you're okay, you think you're okay, you think you're okay, and all of a sudden around 11 a.m. you start getting ravenous. And that's often where you start over-consuming food already without even knowing it. Now, because you've already had those snacks, you skip lunch because you're like, oh, I'm a little bit full from those snacks. I don't need to eat lunch now. And it becomes a vicious cycle throughout the day that by the time you get home for dinner, oftentimes you're either going to overconsume dinner or you're quite full. So you're going to skip dinner and boom, that's where you're going to raid the snack cupboard. And that is why I always say don't skip breakfast, because you feel like you're doing yourself a favor by skipping a meal, but oftentimes that comes to bite you in the bum throughout the day or later in the evening or at night before you go to bed. If you are successfully navigating this health and fat loss expedition by skipping breakfast and it works for you, then by all means proceed forward with it. But just understand why fat loss takes place. It's not taking place because you are skipping breakfast. It's taking place because you are placing yourself in a calorie deficit by skipping breakfast. But again, skipping breakfast can lead to all kinds of pawpaws hitting the fans later on in the afternoon or later on in the evening because your meal frequency isn't up to scratch and you're skipping meals, having more snacks, skipping meals, raiding the snack cupboard. All right. Number 2. Start increasing your protein with your meals throughout the day. Now, why is the increased level of protein so important when it comes to your fat loss expedition? Like, let's be realistic. There's nothing magical about protein when it comes to, oh, if you eat enough protein, it's magically going to burn the fat. That's not the case. What's going to happen when you increase your protein with your meals is that it's going to keep you fuller for longer. And when you are fuller for longer, you tend to have less cravings. You tend to want to snack a little bit less. You tend to eat less food throughout the day, which means your adherence to your calorie goals, to your nutritional plan, more often than not becomes a lot better because you're not as hungry throughout the day. And that's the beauty of increasing your protein. It's really going to help keep you fuller for a longer period of time. Now, if you're not yet at the point where you're eating a huge amount of protein, don't become overly stressed about it. Don't become overly panicked about it. Have a look where you're currently at with your protein and just try and increase it gradually with the meals that you are consuming. Remember, this whole expedition isn't about being perfect. It's about gradually making small little improvements as you move forward. So as you would increase your step targets as you proceed on your expedition, you can gradually work your way towards reaching those protein targets. But again, plant that seed with yourself where you're like, you know what, protein is going to be a game changer because it's really going to help keep you fuller for longer. But if you're not currently hitting your protein targets, start where you are at and use that as a benchmark and just gradually start increasing more protein into your plan. Number 3 is something that a lot of you are not going to want to hear because a lot of you think you are 12 years old and you don't need to eat your vegetables. But number 3 is increase your fiber. Now, obviously, there's many ways that you can use to increase your fiber, but your best bet here is going to be eat more fruit and vegetables throughout the day. As simple as that. Again, your fiber is going to help keep you full. And here's the beauty of it. If you're having something for lunch that is something maybe like a tuna, not a whole tuna, a can of tuna, you can so easily bulk that up with a massive, massive salad. Boom, there you're hitting your fiber. So instead of having 1 ton of tuna and half a cucumber, you're literally bulking it up. You're adding volume to that meal that you're having, and that's going to help keep you full until your next meal. If you're having something like a little piece of chicken and a piece of broccoli, Add a huge amount of veggies to that plate. I can tell you now, by adding volume to your meals through adding veggies to your meals, it's a no-brainer for me. It's absolutely a no-brainer. And you see, this is where people overthink. They're like, okay, but can we have carrots? Can we have butternut? Can we have this? Can we have that? Veggies. Just eat your veggies. Eat your veggies. Add veggies to 2 of your meals throughout the day. You're going to experience how that is really going to help you adhere to the plan, because now you've got protein as part of that meal and you've bulked it up with veggies. Instead of just looking at a little piece of food, you're now going to be eating a whole plate of food. Boom, that's going to keep you full until the next meal. You see where I'm going with this? The fuller you are between meals, from those meals that you have consumed, the less likely you are to want to nibble and pick on certain things and snack on certain things, because you've eaten so much at your main meals. And that brings me to the next point. Eat your meals at more or less the same time every single day. What do I mean by that? Create a solid meal frequency for yourself. If you're having breakfast at 7 a.m. in the mornings, try and stick to having breakfast at 7 a.m. in the mornings. I mean, obviously give or take a couple of minutes, 30 minutes here or there. And the same goes for your lunch, and the same goes for your dinner. Number one, you're going to regulate your appetite hormones, which means you're going to be feeling hungry more or less at the same time every single day. Boom, you know that's a real hunger. Whereas if you're eating meals at different times of the day and you're skipping meals and you're having one here and you're not having one there, and then you're eating it at 10 a.m. and then you're eating it at 12 a.m. it just becomes a nightmare, because you're not going to be able to identify when you are hungry, when it's a fake hunger or whatever it is. The moment you start having your meals at more or less the same time every single day, that's where you start reducing those random hunger pains that hit at a random hour of the day that you can't control, which then lead into you spiraling out of control when it comes to certain foods. Number 4, start incorporating lower calorie drinks or 0 calorie drinks. And what I mean by this is really look at reducing your drinks that are higher in calories. Drinks such as your sugary drinks, whether it's your Coke, your Fanta, your cream soda, your Sprite, or whether it's something like fruit juice. A lot of times your drinks come in at a higher calorie rate. Why are you spending calories on something that's not going to keep you full? That's my question. So for example, if you're having 3 or 4 cappuccinos per day, just go for interest's sake and log that in MyFitnessPal and actually have a look how many calories you're utilizing on something that is not keeping you full. If you look at incorporating a drink that is lower in calories or that has 0 calories, water for example, you have so much more calories to spend on food. Like you can literally eat a lot more throughout the day if you remove 2 cappuccinos or you remove 2 Coca-Colas or you remove 2 glasses of wine every single evening. You are going to be able to eat a lot more food throughout the day. What's that going to do? That's going to help keep you fuller for a longer period of time. You're going to feel full, and that's going to help you adhere to your calorie plan, to your nutritional plan. That's going to help with your adherence. That's going to help bring you progress. Number 6, don't cut your calories to a very restrictively low amount. And what I mean by that is, look, like, just don't sniff the cucumber and the lettuce leaves and say, oh, I've eaten today. No, bulk up your meals, volume up your meals. Make sure that you're eating enough throughout the day, because what's going to happen if you're on a really restrictively low calorie goal? And if you're not tracking calories, what that means, you're not eating a lot throughout the day. What's going to happen? You're going to feel hungry throughout the day. It's going to feel like a constant battle, and you're going to be like, I cannot do this because I'm constantly hungry. So you really need to look at learning to eat more. Number 7, create some go-to meals for yourself. And what I mean by this is like meals on rotation, meals that you have frequently, meals that form part of your plan on a frequent basis. This is going to help remove a lot of the thinking. It's going to help remove a lot of the food noise. It's going to help remove a lot of the overcomplication of the process, because now you know X, Y, and Z contains X, Y, and Z amount of calories, and you know those are the go-to meals. These are meals that you know work for you. These are meals that you know the amount of calories in. These are meals that you know are part of your plan. If you feel like these 7 things are super overwhelming, start with one of them. Maybe you'll start with adding breakfast into your plan. Let's say, for example, you have been skipping breakfast and it hasn't been working for you, and there is an overconsumption of calories and no fat loss is taking place. Then start by incorporating your breakfast. Leave the other 6 things for now and purely just focus on that breakfast, for example. Or if you feel that you've got everything under control but you're lacking some protein in your plan, then say, okay, I'm going to start working on adding more protein to my plan. This isn't a quick fix. You're not only giving yourself 21 days to execute everything. These are long-term changes that you're making, and they need to become very habitual. So whether you add all 7 things at once and you work on it consistently, or you add one of them at once and work on it consistently, add another one, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. But these 7 things that I mentioned here are game changers when it comes to you adhering to your nutritional plan. Because like I said, by implementing these, it's really going to help keep you fuller for longer throughout the day, which number one is going to help you adhere to that plan, which is the most important thing when it comes to you seeing progress on your health and fat loss expedition. And at the end of the day, that's why I make these videos, because I want to help you guys progress. I want to help give you that information so that you can start implementing it. But that is the most important thing. I plant the seed. You are the one that needs to water that seed. Meaning, I give you the tips and advice that I used on my 40-kilogram fat loss expedition. But you're the one that actually needs to trust me on this and implement these 7 things so that you can see the progress coming your way. And remember, progress is about so much more than that number on the scale.